Greater Manchester Police Assistant Chief Constable Stephen Haywood, retired, gets away with it yet again after just a 3-minute misconduct hearing over the death of Anthony Granger. Cakes and fizzy pop. Prison rewards for grown men who behave whilst doing time. Protected single-sex spaces sticker causes Devon and Cornwall Police to have words with hate crime suspects. Manchester Police proudly tweet how they shut down a 10-year-old girl's birthday party and issued a single mother with a fixed penalty notice. This and more coming up. Don't forget, these reports are daily, Monday to Friday. Please remember to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future uploads. If you do appreciate the work I do and understand that these topics result in little to no YouTube monetisation, please consider joining the channel Patreon for as little as just £3 a month to help me continue providing this content. Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan and welcome back to another PAP Reports. It is Monday, the 24th of August 2020. Now, we've spoken about Anthony Granger in a few previous PAP reports, how he was shot dead in Cheshire, even though he was no threat to police, how retired Assistant Chief Constable Stephen Haywood of Manchester Police misled a public inquiry into the fatal shooting, and how Anthony Granger's girlfriend is putting herself through university law degree in her continued fight for justice for the unlawful killing that seems to be swept back under the carpet at every possible opportunity. Stephen Haywood was investigated by the Independent Office of Police Conduct after giving evidence at an inquiry into the death of 36-year-old Anthony Granger, who was shot and killed by firearms police in a car park in Colchester, Cheshire in 2012. That investigation found Mr Haywood may have committed a criminal offence, but in November 2018 the Crown Prosecution Service decided not to charge him due to insufficient evidence. Haywood faced a gross misconduct hearing for allegedly breaching the force's standards of honesty and integrity because entries in his firearms log were made retrospectively. It would seem in an attempt to justify the shooting by adding inaccurate information about Mr Granger's previous convictions. However, at a 2-day misconduct hearing in June, it was deemed as unfair to continue with the hearing, as the hearing would not have had access to redacted material, including evidence given during a closed session at a public inquiry in 2017. However, despite the allegations being dismissed in June, on Friday the 21st of August, Ian Pilling, Deputy Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, said under police conduct regulations a further hearing had to be held to consider what disciplinary action, if any, should be imposed given the findings of the panel. Stephen Haywood seemed to have already been privy to the outcome of that hearing, as he did not bother to attend, nor did his legal representatives, as it took the panel just 3 minutes to come to the decision that Stephen Haywood would not face any disciplinary action. How sickening for Gal Granger and the Granger family after all this time, and even though Haywood has retired, the police Blue Line gang are still covering up for his failings. Now, I know Gal was working hard to complete her law degree, and I hope that she manages to get some kind of justice satisfaction at some point in the future. 2 police stations in County Antrim have been closed after 8 police service from Northern Ireland constables allegedly tested positive for COVID-19. According to a statement from the PSNI on Saturday, the tests were carried out following reports of a number of officers feeling unwell. The Police Federation of Northern Ireland said more than 50 police officers are in isolation, and Antrim and Newton Abbey police stations have been closed to conduct a deep clean. The PSNI says it's taken appropriate measures in line with public health advice and guidance after the officers tested positive. Assistant Chief Constable Alan Todd explained, following reports of a number of officers from Antrim Station being unwell, these officers have undergone testing for COVID-19. At this time, 8 of these officers have tested positive for the virus. We have undertaken and we will continue to undertake a range of appropriate measures in line with public health advice and guidance to address the issue. This includes the closure of both Antrim and Newton Abbey stations in order to conduct a deep clean. Maybe you should consider doing a deep clean of your ranks as well. But if you're a criminal in the area, Assistant Chief Constable Alan Todd said that he wants to reassure the public that they have plans in place to ensure continuance of service delivery to keep our people of our communities safe. So no mad crime sprees, eh? Now, if you're facing jail in the near future, then pray you get sent to HMP Rye Hill, because if you can go 50 days without getting into a fight, you'll be rewarded with cakes and fizzy pop. Jail officials have said that the cake and pop scheme has seen prisoner tax plunge by almost 2/3 against the national average. A source said it has proved to be a very cost-effective solution to tackling a very expensive problem. It is amazing what people will do for a little luxury when they're banged up. A report said initiatives for violence reduction include a prisoner-led violence elimination team and a campaign where the number of violence-free days is published weekly for each residential unit. There is a celebratory award of cake and soft drinks made to units achieving important milestones, such as 50 or 100 days violence-free. This promotes a culture where all benefit from eliminating violence. The report added during 2019 there were 110 recorded assaults, which equates to 165 per 1,000 prisoners, when the national picture across all classes of prisons was 412 per 1,000 prisoners. Now, I can see how the idea might work, but surely this would benefit those in on long-term visits rather than those on short-stay vacations at the prison. People who are unlikely to be able to get their hands on cakes for a long time might well be more inclined to appreciate it, but those who know they'll be out relatively soon, I can't see really being that bothered by it. Now, of course, that's my own opinion, and as I've never been in prison, I might be completely wrong. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Now, we spoke last week about the amount of money the government has spent on questionable companies to supply PPE and COVID test kits, even with millions of pounds going to a dormant company. Well, Labour are now questioning why £500 million has gone to companies that are directly linked to Tories without them having to bid for contracts. Now, I did say in a recent report last week how the normal tendering process can be overlooked under the COVID emergency legislation, but that doesn't obviously explain why so much has gone to friends of Tories. Shadow Cabinet Office Minister Rachel Reeves is demanding an independent probe after she said there has been an alarming pattern of companies with links to the Conservatives doing well out of publicly funded projects during the pandemic. People want their governments to use public money fairly, and they don't expect contracts to end up with ministers' mates. Randox, the diagnostic firm who were contracted to supply COVID test kits, pays Tory MP and former Cabinet Minister Owen Paterson £8,333 a month as an advisor, and even so had to recall 750,000 test kits over fears of safety concerns. Serco is paid £108 million for running the National Contract Tracing Service and nearly £46 million by the DWP to run call centres. Health Minister Edward Arger was a senior executive and boss. Rupert Soames is brother of former Tory MP Sir Nicholas Soames. PricewaterhouseCoopers, which won 7 contracts, hired Theresa May's former top aide Gavin Barwell as a strategic advisor in January. He is also non-executive advisor at Arcadis, which was given a £1.5 million consultancy contract with the Ministry of Justice in April. Public First Limited gets £840,000 to run focus groups for Number 10. That is owned by James Frayne, who started the New Frontiers think tank in 2003 with Dominic Cummings. I asked the question in last week's video, were these firms really the best value for money, or was it more about lining MPs' friends' pockets with a little backhander for MPs? Or could it merely be a coincidence? But it certainly needs looking into, as I think the public would have much to say if they found out that while we were all struggling to carry on, the people who have forced us into this situation are laughing their asses off and getting richer. Devon and Cornwall police have confirmed that they've spoken to a woman about her horrifically bigoted and discriminative online posts whilst investigating hate crime. 51-year-old Susie Ierson put a post on Facebook supporting Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling in her row with the transgender community. One post featured a silhouette of a witch's hat with the message, "Modern day witch hunts, I refuse to bow down." And another said, "Don't flush our rights down the toilet, protect single-sex spaces." I think we can all agree these kind of things are abhorrent, and people's opinions that simply do not conform must be stamped out. In fact, maybe we need to set up a firing squad for anyone whose opinion doesn't match those of our overseers. And seeing as our overseers are more and more trained and advised by those who don't like other people's opinions, I'm sure we can get a lot of people back into work with brown shirts and an STG-44. The post Susie put up was actually a photo of stickers which appeared in Torquay in Devon while she was there with her 9-year-old son. Susie said, "I asked what crime was committed. They said they wasn't sure, but it was to do with the stickers on the seafront. I thought they'd have enough on their hands maintaining social distancing on the crowded beaches. Messiahson of Hungerford, Berkshire said, I know lots of women concerned about women's rights, not least losing our loos and changing rooms, who have been questioned by police. She has now been branded a bigot online, which is quite ironic when you think about it, as a bigot is someone who holds intolerance towards those holding different views and opinions. And what are these people calling her names doing? It's genuinely amazing just how stupid some social justice warriors can really be. Sticking on the subject of hate crimes now, North Wales Social Justice Police have said that hate crime will not be tolerated after records are said to show an increase in reported incidents. Now, I'm sure those increases in reports doesn't actually reflect the increase of actual crimes though. Figures are said to show a yearly increase in hate crime in North Wales of over 19%, with 362 hate crimes reported last year to date compared to 431 this year. Jan Thomas, founder of the FDF, formerly the Flintshire Disability Forum, expressed concerns that hate crimes were increasing and more individuals were left feeling unable to leave their homes due to that fear. She said, are you feeling angry when you see people out and about without a face mask? Do you believe it's unfair that special measures were put in place for some people during COVID-19? You could be unintentionally drifting into committing a hate crime if you use unacceptable language or actions against the most vulnerable in our communities. At the FDF, we have seen an increase in the number of disabled people feeling fearful of returning to normality and an increase in mental health issues. We know from official figures from North Wales Police that hate crime has increased dramatically during COVID. Far from bringing communities together, we know that those people seen as being different have been a target for unpleasant behaviour. Not all disabilities are visible. Autism, mental health, learning disability, breathing difficulties, fibromyalgia are not obvious but may be causing no end of issues for the individuals. The FDF works to the social model of disability, i.e. a person is disabled by the attitude of others and the environment, not by their impairment. With reasonable adjustments, the majority of disabled people can be fully included in the community in which they live. Try to be non-judgmental. You have no idea what these people are going through. It's been said that across the country, hate crimes are 67% higher to the weekend in August the 13th this year than the same period last year. With 1,084 incidents nationally to date, there has been an identifiable link to the coronavirus, either in language used or perceived by the victim as a factor. But you see, this is one of the problems. Perception is not a standard and can wildly fluctuate from person to person, meaning there's no continuity. It's just like the police using their discretion on how they feel at any particular time. It means that people are being arrested and charged for crimes that are not crimes. And when you have the words hate crime on your record, your life is pretty much ruined, as you're unlikely to be able to get a decent job. You might even lose the job that you have because somebody doesn't like a particular word you've used. And all they have to do is say they found it offensive. PC Rob Newton-Miller from North Wales Police said, we have seen an increase in hate crime reports in line with the national trend. We are continuing to assess the impact of COVID-19 and have received a small number of reports linked to the outbreak. My message is that any incident that someone thinks has been caused as a result of their race, religion, sexual orientation, disability or gender identity should be reported. Such incidents are not acceptable and won't be tolerated. Now, personally, I think that should be changed to say any incident where the alleged offender has used language specifically directed at you over your race, religion, sexual orientation, disability or gender identity that is said in a manner meant to cause alarm or distress, then you should report it and we will investigate it, as such incidents may not actually be as a result of discrimination towards you. But then I guess their target numbers are going to drop, aren't they? Yeah, they're not going to want to do that, are they? No. Manchester police have been on a bit of a mission the past few days over the weekend as they ceremoniously posted tweet after tweet after tweet of how they've been enforcing COVID restriction rules on people. Whether they were looking for a pat on the back or not is unknown, but one gathering intervention they tweeted has seen a bit of a backlash. In fact, they have been branded heavy-handed after they raided an address after a tip-off by a grassy neighbour over a 10-year-old girl's birthday party. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, they shouldn't have been there, or that 3 separate households meeting, even for a young child's birthday party, is dangerous and can contribute to the spread of COVID-19. But if they were 2 metres apart, then there shouldn't be any issues with people meeting in their private homes or gardens. And this is where the regulations become confusing for many. Now, the police guidance on issuing fixed penalty notice is to engage, explain, encourage and enforce. However, Greater Manchester Police seem to be skipping the first three and heading directly to the enforce option after almost all of these tweets mention fines being issued. The mother of the young girl whose birthday it was, believed to be a single mother, was also issued with a fixed penalty notice. Another tweet about a separate incident said, #update. Officers have dispersed an engagement party in Rochdale. The occupant was given 30 minutes to disperse attendees and the homeowner was issued with a fixed penalty notice. Now, if they'd been given 30 minutes to disperse and they complied, then a fixed penalty notice shouldn't have been issued. But the brown shirts of Manchester simply can't help themselves and seem to actually enjoy widening that gap between public and police. Greater Manchester Police were hit with much criticism after the posts on Twitter by thousands of critical comments from Twitter users who said it was excessive. Many pointed out the family would have been allowed to use an indoor venue such as a soft play centre where they faced a greater risk of infection. Others said police were quicker at targeting a party than responding to serious crimes. David Patton, a professor at Nottingham University, asked, "Have I got this right? Police are actually advertising the fact that they fined someone for holding a child's birthday party outside in their own garden." He questioned why the officers did not use discretion and hand out a warning instead. A police spokesperson said this was one of several breaches of COVID-19 regulations that were publicised to demonstrate the breadth of incidents Greater Manchester Police have been called to in just one night. But it still makes you utter spunk trumpets for destroying a young girl's birthday and probably putting more pressure on the girl's single mother. I mean, as if there isn't enough for people to worry about. I mean, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have done it. But providing they were distanced, then it shouldn't make a difference. The police could have easily have given words of advice, i.e. make sure you keep your distance, but no. No, it's far more brown shirt-like to punish those who are trying their best during the period of eradication of our rights. You can guarantee that if it was a copper's daughter, they would soon look the other way. Apparently, police across the country are feeling mounting anger at being named and shamed online. Good, it's working. Maybe they'll think twice about using excessive force, breaching their professional standards, or just acting outside of their oath of office. However, police are said to be privately recording incidents on their own personal mobile phones, so they can refute claims of racism, sexism or excessive force. Now, I'm not sure why they have to use their own mobile phones when they can use their body cams, and please don't start telling me that they can't afford to buy body cams for all police constables, as that is utter rubbish. Stop making up new roles to combat issues that aren't an issue until you come up with a new role for them, and stop paying chief constables and police and crime commissioners nearly £100,000 a year, and you can put that money back into more equipment. Ken Marsh, chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, told the Mail on Sunday, "I know it's happened with officers because they think for their own protection. I'm going to record it or film it. I've had numerous officers tell me face to face they are going to start recording themselves if body-worn footage can't be released. And there's no reason why it can't be released, unless there's an ongoing investigation, but even then a statement saying the video's been reviewed and it shows XYZ. The footage will be released when the investigation's complete, and I think people will be happy with that, providing it is released. I mean, look at the Dawn Butler situation. She uploads a short, cleverly edited clip, but the police say they have video that proves they didn't do anything wrong, apart from misspelling the number plate when checking it. But if that's so, then there's no reason why the footage shouldn't be allowed to be shared, especially as police chiefs have said it doesn't show them doing anything wrong. A police source added officers have done this for some time, but the issue with videos on social media has made it much more pressing problem. Rank and file constables feel under siege. In one incident earlier this year, a man who was stopped in London accused a Met police officer of racially abusing him during a conversation. Apparently, the police constable, who was also wearing a body cam, is understood to have taped the exchange on his personal mobile phone, which was in his pocket. The allegation was said to have been later dismissed after an investigation. The Dawn Butler incident got a response from Sir Steve House, the Met's Deputy Commissioner, for condemning the resulting trial by social media and said his officers acted professionally and politely. Well, number one, I didn't condemn them on here, Stevie boy. And number two, release the footage. The constables involved with the stop of Butler is said to feel let down by management because footage from cameras mounted on their uniforms has not been released. Can it be fair that anyone can take a video of my colleagues and publish it instantly without asking them, and they have to live with that? Asked Ken Marsh. So why on earth can we not do the same? If we had been able to share the body-worn camera with the public immediately, we wouldn't have this problem. And I've got to agree. But the problem is we can't trust the police not to edit videos that they release. That's why every video should be uploaded to the cloud. And unless specifically marked for investigation, released after 24 hours on the platform so the public can view it. It's not hard. PC Andrew Ross from Wiltshire Police is to face a misconduct panel for allegations of, well, nobody knows, because the police force has not given that information out. However, the end goal is to determine whether he has breached the standards of professional behaviour. The standards he's accused of breaching are honesty and integrity, authority, respect and courtesy, orders and instructions, duties and responsibilities, and discreditable conduct. A full house. If the panel decides the mysterious allegations are proved and represent gross misconduct, punishment can range from a written warning to being handed his P45 without notice. Police in Staffordshire and Cheshire on the hunt for a naked man. A stark warning has been issued after social media reports say a naked runner has been seen at the Roaches near Leek, the Danebridge Trail near Lud's Church on the Manifold Trail close to Waterhouses, the Goyt Valley in Buxton and Three Shires Head in Axtedge Moor. The local police are now asking the public to watch out for the naked runner so they can build up a description. They say he's been spotted jogging along local beauty spots with nothing but a bum bag covering him up. A Cheshire police spokesperson said, "It appears we have a naked man in our midst who likes to run around the more rural areas with his crown jewels on show or maybe partially obscured by a teeny tiny bum bag. This is not what I thought I would be doing when I filled in the application form many years ago now to join the Rozzers." What you mean is you didn't think when you filled in your application form that you would be searching for people not breaking the law. I think that's what you meant to say. Now, I said it in a video before the weekend. Being naked in public is not illegal or unlawful. The College of Policing's own guidance on public nudity says passive behaviours in public place such as sunbathing, walking, cycling, swimming, gardening, home maintenance, etc., and running would fall into the etc. part, and if they are just being naked in public, it will be lawful activity. Explain to the caller that no offences are committed and that no police action is necessary. I mean, for goodness sake, leave people alone who are doing nothing wrong. He's in the countryside, not in the middle of town where there's kids about. Even then it wouldn't be unlawful, but at least he's respectful enough to do it in rural areas. I mean, just simply stop with the having to flex your muscles. If someone's not breaking the law, then keep your advice to yourself. Nobody wants to hear it. Stop feeling like you have to get involved in everything that happens and stick to actual crimes. Who knows? You might even be able to free up some manpower to deal with real crimes. Heading to the other side of the world now as we pop over to New Zealand. The reason is because they are talking about something that I think directly affects us here in the UK too, and something I've been saying on this channel for some time. A letter from the founder of the New Zealand Police Conduct Association, Shannon Parker, to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Justice Minister Andrew Little has called for an overhaul of the system for those mistreated by officers. Shannon Parker is asking why some instances of misconduct are not taken to court when the Independent Police Conduct Authority, or our IOPC, has ruled against the offending officer and claims complaints filed by alleged victims are too often dismissed. She said, "I think in the cases where the IPCA have ruled against the police, I think those matters should be put before the court. The IPCA has a judge, the judge decides that an offence has been committed. It's especially frustrating for the victim when the IPCA has ruled it is an offence, but the police are saying it isn't." Parker believes police are protecting their own when it comes to complaints against the force, as noted in a report by the IPCA which revealed that not all complaints received by New Zealand police were being notified to the authority. She said, "I've seen multiple examples of victims and complainants that have been let down by the police from the beginning to the end of the complaints process. I'm aware police face multiple challenges when they're investigating their own. They're thinking about their reputation, employment matters and the media, but I believe that's where the victim is let down. She added, I think there are a lot of people who don't come forward because they did something wrong, which is unfortunate, because two wrongs don't make a right, she said. It's possible that the criminal history of offenders who have come forward is taken into account and impacts how they're treated by the police. Parker says filing a complaint can be intimidating for alleged victims of misconduct. There's an imbalance of power and knowledge when it comes to lodging a complaint against the police. It can be intimidating. It puts people off speaking out, which means we have officers getting away with their behaviour. Now, I've got to say, the New Zealand Police Conduct Association is a great idea. They state on their website that their purpose is to make a positive difference to victims and complainants by ensuring they know their rights and all of the options available to them, to work with victims of police misconduct and achieve resolutions and closure where possible, advocate to ensure victims of police misconduct have their voices heard and they are supported, raise public awareness, to challenge how things are done, and that they will work in cooperation and collaboration with any person, organisation or agency who shares the common goal of ensuring victims of police misconduct are treated fairly and their voices are heard. And this is something we need here in the UK, a pressure group if you like. But the problems we have here is funding, as it would have to be entirely public funded, and numbers. It would need a huge backing from the public, people who are not afraid to put their name to a petition or join a rally to see fairness and transparency from our public services. Unfortunately, I feel that there's just not enough people willing to do that just yet, but as this global eradication of our rights continues, I think more and more people will slowly start to see the light, and maybe sometime soon someone will step forward and put into action a similar pressure group here in the UK. BAME folk beware. A mixed race senior police officer, Chi Donald, National Vice Chair of the Police Federation, has come forward and said that despite criticism, he doesn't believe policing is institutionally racist. The leader of the National Black Police Association said last week that the incident with MP Dawn Butler was rooted in a biased system that views black people as criminals or drug dealers. And as I said last week, that we're all treated as guilty of something when being spoken to by the police, even when there's no evidence to prove any guilt. And we all have to prove our innocence rather than the police proving us guilty. So it's not just BAME folk who get the sharp end of the stick. Chi Donald wrote in the Daily Telegraph over Butler's stop. However, because of the nature of the stop, the profile of the occupant and the media coverage, the focus of debate has been on the officers rather than on whether the incident itself was legitimate, proportionate and without prejudice or bias. When we start to review incidents in this way, seeking to further the proposition that the police are guilty of racial profiling or institutional racism, it is inevitable that personal interpretations will play a role, whether they are supported by the evidence or not. He said that he identifies as a mixed race and experienced racism growing up in South Africa, and added, I do not personally take the view that policing is institutionally racist, yet I do believe that we should do far more to address the policies and procedures which create the perception that it is. Now, the articles that I've read all go on to quote the figures garnered by Hope Not Hate's mass survey of 1,000 people, which was taken during the heightened tensions after the killing of George Floyd, and have run with those figures as if they represent the entire country. And I've already explained in last week's video how the figures shouldn't be trusted, and I'm not about to repeat that. Clearly biased and no doubt cleverly edited figures, as it simply does nothing more than fuel the tensions and divide between people. But it's nice that someone who would know about discrimination has spoken out about there not being institutional racism. Although I have no doubt whatsoever that someone will come forward and say he doesn't understand because he's only half black or some other BS and try to discredit him. But only time will tell. After Greater Manchester Police going on their fixed penalty notice spree over the weekend, we seem to have hit the far opposite end of the spectrum over in Telford. West Mercia Police have been criticised after they had been called to a breach of COVID regulations over a wedding party. Apparently, the ceremony had been held in Telford before the Asian wedding party travelled to Birmingham, with more than 200 people packing into the 5-star Crystal Plaza Conference Centre in the city. Now, unlike Greater Manchester Police, West Mercia Police were either far more relaxed about the whole regulations thing or were far too scared to do anything about it. as rather than remind the group of the importance of social distancing or taking such social distancing measures themselves, they instead decided to pose for photos with at least 15 of the group. Chief Superintendent Sue Thomas of West Mercia Police said as part of their engagement with the wedding party, our officers agreed to pose for photos. Disappointingly, the officers do not appear to have reminded the group of the importance of social distancing or taken such measures themselves, and they will be spoken to about this. Birmingham is already said to be on the watch list for potential local lockdown, with infections said to have more than doubled from a fortnight ago. I wonder what on earth could be causing that. West Mercia Police confirmed the large Asian wedding had taken place with the Safer Neighbourhood team on duty and conducting patrols. A Force spokesperson said, "We are aware that a number of the guests were driving in an inappropriate manner, which is being followed up in regards to who was driving. There will be a number of Section 59s being issued as a result." But throughout the entire article, not a single mention of the Crystal Plaza in Birmingham being issued a closure order for breaching COVID regulations. Although I'm not surprised the venue allowed it to go ahead, the owner of the Crystal Plaza in Birmingham, Mr. Tazawar Hussain, is probably a friend or relative of the family. However, if it wasn't embarrassing enough for West Mercia Police to fail to enforce the COVID regulations and instead get their photos taken with those breaching them, if it wasn't embarrassing enough for West Mercia Police to walk away from a business that had clearly breached their required regulations placed on them by the government without issuing a closure order, it gets even more embarrassing, as I found out with a little bit of digging that the venue doesn't appear as though it should have been opened in the first place, considering the company is listed as dormant on Companies House and has been since at least September 2017, with their accounts for a dormant company showing assets of just £2, which doesn't appear to have changed since the company was registered. And that's incredibly odd, as they have this big building. Now, you might be thinking maybe they don't own the building, and you could be right. However, when they've got an Instagram account for the company, a Facebook page for the company with 55 reviews being followed by some 1,700 people, with images of events spanning the last 2 years while they were listed as dormant, a charity foundation that they set up only to fail to provide information on its finances within 10 months of its financial year end, and a website advertising the venue, and you would expect them to have made some money over that time. Unless, of course, there's a tax evasion or VAT fraud going on. Now, that is a very serious allegation, and I want to make it abundantly clear that that is simply an opinion based on the information I've found. But if it is the case, then the police failing to have issued a closure order on the venue, breaching regulations, have potentially allowed the company to continue trading unlawfully. If, that is, they are still dormant with Companies House, which Companies House were unable to tell me when I phoned them this morning, as they take all the filings from companies in good faith and require no evidence unless they get a report from somebody. Now, I have limited experience and very limited time to investigate this kind of thing, but I'll leave that story there, and I'll just keep an eye on the company anyway, just out of interest, to see if they issue another dormant account statement. Big up and respect to every single one of the channel supporters, especially the channel Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate the help that you give. And that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. Until next time, stay safe, look after each other. From the police, and of course, as always, other officials. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video, there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.